We're here talking about healing and wellness, in a sense, and finding your true purpose. But the thing is that nobody sets out on this journey of wellness without any sort of trauma or stress, or, you just get put on the path to wellness. It's not like when you're young, it's all about having fun and partying. And in fact, we spend a considerable amount of time trying to cultivate bad habits. But wellness is a different thing altogether, right? I mean, you're put on this path because of certain circumstances. So I want to know a little bit about your journey. What were the factors that put you on to this path? Was there any sort of incident and setback? I would love to know about that.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here, all of you. And thanks to your company in this conversation. I would say that wellness, as the Indian saviors know, starts by your mind. When somebody says, I am very stressed, I have anxiety, my life is frantic, the question you must put to yourself is, stress is outside yourself or inside yourself? Because maybe the world is not stressful and not quiet. Something is something neutral, and this is you, that you put too many things in the agenda, that you are too ambitious, that you are comparing yourself to other people, that you are putting too many things in the table of life. So when we are feeling unwell and we are feeling stressed and we want to change our life, the first question we must put to ourselves is, how do we think? How do we organize our lives? How many things we want to put every day? And this is the beginning of the healing in this level.
Were you always into wellness and healing, or were you a completely different person in say, your 20s?
Actually, I've been always working in publishing of wellness, because my personal story, I will tell it short. I studied German literature and language. I started being a translator. And by that time, the most important books about wellness, psychology, self-help, they were coming from Germany. Many authors were pioneers then. And after that, I started working for a publishing house specialized in topics of religion, spirituality, psychology, wellness. And I've been very interested since then. I've been 25 years working with this kind of books. First, I was a publisher. After that, I became journalist of these topics, and I wrote many books under pen name, pseudonym. And actually, when I wrote Ikigai together with Hector Garcia, I had already written like 40 books about that, more normally about psychology, about success, all these topics. But when we visited Okinawa, the centenarians, we had a different kind of point of view about wellness, because we were talking with people who were 100, 105, 108 years old, and they were totally active, and they were working in the things they loved. And so we learned a lot about them, and that's why we wrote the book Ikigai. Ikigai has two branches in the topics of the book. One is the purpose in life, and the second, what you need to do to become 100, full of energy, illusion, and motivation.
So yes, I read your book and it's beautiful. And Ikigai is such a personal concept, and it is such a Japanese concept. And Okinawa, their way of living, I've read it in your book, and the Okinawan diet itself is so famous, that whole term of hara hachibu, of eating just till you're, full, 75% full. All those concepts are beautiful. But do you think that living in the city or Western societies with their completely different culture can authentically tap into the spirit of Ikigai?
Yes, I don't think that Ikigai, the real meaning of Ikigai, is something only Japanese. It has to do with a natural way of living. So I've read that you live in a house and you practice the gardening. This is Ikigai, even if you don't live in Japan. Because if we go to Tokyo, to Osaka, to Kyoto, people live very far away from their purpose in life because they are working 12 hours a day, they don't have time to be with their children, they don't have time to be with their friends and parents. And so Ikigai is not something Japanese, but it's to find meaning in your daily life, doing what you love, with the people you like, and giving space to something that gives you meaning. For instance, something that has to be with your talents. If you discover that you are good at writing, maybe you are working in a bank, but you need to write 1 hour a day to feel that this Ikigai is growing inside yourself. And this is not something Japanese. Actually, there is a relationship between Ikigai and logotherapy, and this is something that came in the Central Europe in the 40s, and Viktor Frankl, the writer of the book, The Man in Search of a Meaning, he said already that if you find a reason to live, then you can overcome any difficulty. And the big quest is finding what is your purpose. And many young people have problems with that.
I think wellness is such an intimidating concept. A few days back, somebody contacted me and they asked me that in this high-stress, fast-moving world where people have no time, is there any, do people even have a need for wellness and how do they create the space for it? And I was like, it is precisely because we live in this fast-paced time that we need wellness. But we need wellness which is sort of, woven into the fabric of our everyday lives instead of, trying to make time. Like, a lot of the ancient rituals, I was reading one of your interviews, in fact, where you say that you're very mindful in everyday activities and, the way you live your life, but you don't follow traditional meditation. So that I found very interesting because I did try meditating for a while, but I'm in this phase of life where, I want to write my book and I want to do 10,000 things, 10 million things. And when I sit down for meditation, my mind starts thinking about all the things on my to-do list. And after an hour, I am just exhausted. So I just love this whole idea of Ikigai because it is interwoven into the fabric of our everyday lives. But the fabric of our everyday lives these days is not that simple. I mean, there's social media, there's addiction to our cell phones, right? It's digital heroin. It's not as simple as keep your cell phone aside because before you know it, your hand is there and you're on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. So what are your tips for being more mindful through the day and bringing yourself back to yourself?
First tip would be doing less things. This is difficult for all of us. Myself, I am very optimistic with the calendar and the agenda. And I think that maybe today I can do 7 things. I can write an article, I can have a lesson with my piano teacher, I can be with my friends, I can be here with this beautiful audience. But by the end of the day, we realize that we are putting too many things in our lives. And the problem is that we cannot improvise. And it's very important, improvisation, for a natural life. If we observe the animals, they are not living a ruled life where a thing comes after half an hour. They are flowing. And the concept of flow that is spoken in the book of Ikigai, that was a concept studied by a Hungarian professor of Harvard, Csikszentmihalyi. He said, if you are able to do only one thing with all your attention, with all your heart, and with all your abilities, with all your senses, then you are in a state of flow. And when you are in a state of flow, it's like a meditation. It's being here and now. If you play the piano and the only things that exist in this moment is the piano, then you forget of the past, you forget of the future, you are right here, right now, and it's equivalent to doing a meditation. I confess that I am a very bad meditator. I don't like it at all. I've done the MBCR of mindfulness, but I don't feel useful meditating. But If you read a book and the only thing you are doing is reading this book and you forget of the cell phone, this is a kind of meditation. If you talk to your children and you are 100% there, it's another kind of meditation for me. So, basic tips for a healthy life, mentally and physically. First, don't treat your body like a rental car. There are people who think that you can mistreat your body like you can buy another car, another vehicle for life. But we have only this. And when the body is sending us signs, it can be too late. So habits are everything. And in the tips of Ikigai, we see that nutrition, movement of the body, sleep, having regular schedules in life, it helps to this vehicle to be in a good state, in a good shape. And then taking care of your mind. It's not only important what we eat for the stomach, but also what we give to our minds. If we are all day with violent contents, with negative news, with people who have bad energy, we are not going to have a healthy life. We need also to give beauty to the mind. Thank you.
Absolutely. Energy is everything. So speaking of flow, do you think that our Ikigai finds us, or do we need to find our Ikigai?
That is a very good question. I think we have both possibilities. There are people who are lucky to be born with a purpose in life. And we can see that in little children even. There are children who know that they want to become doctors, or that they would be artists, or that they want to follow the family and business. If father and mother have, I don't know, a beauty store, they want to follow that because they have seen that it's something nice in the family. But the normal thing is that you come to 17, 18, 19 years old and you don't know what to do with your life. I remember when I was in university, when I was in the 1 year before university, when I was in high school, that I was given a list with 50 possibilities of studying, and I didn't know what to do. Why? Because when you are young, you don't know yourself very well. You don't know what are your talents, what are your priorities, where will you be happy or not. So the finding of Ikigai is a process of trying many things. And then you say, well, this is not for me, this is not for me, this is not for me. And in the end, there is something that has a deep echo into yourself. So we could say that some people discover their Ikigai as something that was inside them, and some others invent a purpose in life. That's something that the French existentialists said. They said, life has no meaning at all, but you can create a meaning for your life. And normally, the meaning of your life has to do with something that is your element, with something that is strong inside you, a kind of talent that you discover in yourself, and then you find a purpose to bring into the world.
So finding your purpose, we live in a time where we have lists like 30 under 30 and, everything needs to be done fast and you need to be, successful in your 20s and there are whiz kids and success stories and that puts a lot of pressure on all of us. So how do we find, and you said in your book that Ikigai is a process that is slow and arduous and it takes time to find that Ikigai. How does that work in this context of the world that values success, young success, and as early as possible? How do we not get pressurized by it?
So how we connect Ikigai with the concept of success nowadays? Yes, if you talk with young people, everybody is worried about money. My son is 14 years old and he created a web page trying to sell I don't know what, and 24 hours after he said, Father, it was a failure. Nobody bought in my shop. And I said, okay, you must learn that the good projects need a mid-term mentality, long-term mentality even. So What I think we need right now in society is practicing the power of passions and thinking not what we can sell today, but how can we contribute to the world. And even so, I think the most powerful Ikigai you can do in your life is when you think what will remain of your work when you are dead. So if you spend your life creating nice books, inspiring people, the ideal Ikigai would be that even when you are not here, there will be many people benefiting for your work in this world, in this earth. So I think we should rethink the concept of success, because success is not having many followers, is not having much money, is not having a lot of prizes, because you can have that and you can be totally unhappy. We see this in many people. I think that a good key of success is given in the book The Psychology of Money of Housel. He says, being successful is waking up in your house and saying, today I can do what I want with my life. And I will be with the people I choose, with the activity I choose, to my time, and I am in control of my day. I am in control of my hours and my minutes and seconds. This is for me to be successful. So we should learn to put a lot of value to our time, because very soon in life we'll see that there is not so much time to do everything what we do. That's my definition of success. Being owner of your own time and doing with this time what your heart says that must be done. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of that, finding your own Ikigai, has to be true to yourself, what makes you happy, because a lot of times we have this illusion about who we are, what we like, what we don't like, whereas we'll be surprised when we spend some time with ourselves that that's not who we are at all. But to do that, it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of good habits, you know, respecting our time. All of that takes a lot of discipline, right? And though we have the want to imbibe these habits and cultivate, a good routine, there is no resolve. You know, we falter when it comes to the resolve. So how do we build this resolve so that we can get what we want from, keeping our Ikigai in mind?
Yes, I think Ikigai is a daily work. So if we think in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, it's difficult to understand what we are able to do with that, but we can decide what we will do tomorrow. So if for you reading is a spiritual habit that brings you joy and brings you this feeling that you are alive intellectually, you should keep for tomorrow at least half an hour to sit in peace and do that. So in the end, as the Greek philosopher said, we are the result of millions of small deeds and thoughts and words that we do every day. And for me, this is karma. When we talk about karma, there is a religious meaning of karma between lives, but inside the same life, we are the result of the little thing we are doing every day. So if you have very good habits of health, you can become 60, 70, and with a lot of energy. If you are not doing that, then maybe you are ill and you think that you have had bad luck in life, but it's not so. And it happens with everything what you do. If you want to become an artist, if you want to become a writer, or to do something different with your life, you need what the Japanese call a Kaizen mentality. Kaizen means every day a little step. So if I want to finish my first book, I must have the compromise with myself of writing a page every day. And if my life is stressful nowadays, I must write it in the subway, in the bus, in a little pause in the work, even in my mobile phone, in the notes. So what you do every day is what you become in future. So for me, Ikigai must be practiced in a daily basis.
is it possible to have multiple ikigais like in our life?
This is a good question, because when we study Ikigai and when we do some kind of workshop, we work always with the 4 circles that you know. The first is what you love. This is a clue of what is your Ikigai. If you love beauty and you love wellness and you love teaching this to people, it could be your Ikigai. Second circle, what are you good at? If you have a talent for communicating, if you have a talent for writing it, if you have a talent for joining people and inspiring them, this is a second clue that it could be your Ikigai. Then it comes the circle of money, if you are able to make money out of this passion, and then what the world needs. So these are the 4 circles of Ikigai, but the circle of money is not always necessary, because if you are well enough with your life because you have a company or you have a job that is okay for you, you can create a second Ikigai that is only creative, artistical, spiritual. And we have many examples of this in life. Franz Kafka, the writer of The Process, The Metamorphose, the most original writer of 20th century, he had 2 Ikigais. In the morning, he was working as a lawyer in an insurance company, and he was a very good lawyer, and he enjoyed practicing his job. But then he came home, he made a nap, he slept 1 hour, and then he had a second life in the evenings, at night, writing his tales, diaries, novels, and both things were necessary for him, because the things that happened in his work, in the court and working as a lawyer, inspired what he was writing in the evening. So you can have 2 Ikigais or even 3. Imagine that you have a company that is doing well and you earn your money with this company and you are contributing to the world. It's a company with a good Ikigai, with a good purpose. And then you discover that you love painting, and you start this second Ikigai. But then you have a baby. This is a third Ikigai that will take a lot of attention on you. So it's possible to have different passions of life, in life, but there will be always one that is taking more time for you. But it can change, because, for instance, there are amateur painters that when they get retired, they don't have to go to the office, then they become full-time painters. And many of them, they get the success in this ending of their lives, and they become late bloomers.
Does our Ikigai always have to be pleasurable? Is it always a joyous process? Or does it have to be... Sometimes I find, for instance, I do enjoy my books. I do enjoy some part of writing my books, but I also find it a very excruciating process. It's something that I'm good at. It's something that works, but it's also extremely painful. So does it always have to be fun and games and joy?
That's a very good point. Actually, even if you find your Ikigai, they are parts of your Ikigai that you don't like. Writing is boring for everyone. Why? Because because our mind goes much quicker than our hands. And so, for instance, when I was with Hector and interviewing all these centenarians in Okinawa, we had thousands of ideas that we wanted to express in the paper, but it was a very slow process. You must write, you must correct, you must write again, correct. Today maybe you have energy, but tomorrow maybe you have a headache, or you would prefer to go to your garden. So actually, even you find an Ikigai that has a lot of meaning, you will need discipline. And you see that in the people who are professional of sports. If you play soccer, I'm sure that you will be happy playing the match, but not in the training, and not in the many hours that go before, and not maybe flying to the other part of the world to play 90 minutes in a football match. It happens the same with any Ikigai. So when you discover what is your purpose in life, you must have the discipline to do the ugly part of the job. For instance, I am a freelancer. I don't have a fixed job. And I hate writing my bills and preparing all my papers for taxes. This is very boring and this is very long. I don't like also many meetings with publishers and long meetings, but it's part of the job. So when you accept that this is your contribution to life, you must take the whole packet. And you say, okay, I know I will be enjoying when I am in front of the audience speaking of the book, but maybe from these 500 hours that I will dedicate to the writing, many of them, it will be a matter of will, a matter of resistance. And it's nice so, because if life was too easy, we would lose interest.
Absolutely. Now, I really want to know what your writing process is. My process is waiting till the deadline and starting the day after the deadline. As any good...
I am like you. Normally, my process is this. I have an idea. For instance, Ikigai. We knew with Hector that we would be in Okinawa, making interviews and working as anthropologists. And then this idea is presented to a publisher in a document that is called proposal. And in this proposal is the table of contents, the concept. And then the publisher sent us the contract. And in the contract states that we should give the manuscript the 30th of March. Then we start writing maybe in February. Before that, in the writing process, that's something very important to understand. There are two parts. And the second is much longer than the first is much longer than the second. The creation of the contents, the investigation, the documentation, maybe you can stay 1 year doing that. But when you have everything in your head, then you can do it very, very fast. And normally, if I have all the information that I need, a couple of months is enough for me.
Is writing your Ikigai?
I would say that writing is very easy for me. It has always been so. When I was a pupil in the school, I was a very bad student. I was always with problems with science, with many... I was one of the worst students of the classroom. But for me, writing was easy by that time even. When the teacher said, let's write now some description of the house of your grandmother, I don't know, or your last holiday. Normally, the whole classroom needed 1 hour for that. With 15 minutes, I had finished. So it was easy. There is a short way from my ideas and the writing on the page. But it doesn't mean that it's always fun. So it's easy, and what is easy, you have more pleasure than if you have to fight with this activity. But I would say that normally, this is something that maybe surprise you. I prefer to listen to people than to talking. So when I am with somebody, I put many questions. I am very interested in other people's lives. And I prefer reading to writing, because it's always better that it's somebody else who works. But I find a purpose in my writing, because after that, after you have done the purpose, after you have done your book, you receive thousands of inputs of people that for them is important. And then I say to myself, if for all these people it's important that I write about these topics, I will put the best of myself in the paper.
So these days, you've spoken about the importance of community, and certainly community is very important. Now we are seeing a different type of community with the rise of social media, right? And it's taking us away from face-to-face interactions. In fact, a lot of young people today will spend their entire day on the phone, but they will not pick up a call. They'll reply to your message on Instagram, but they will not speak to you or meet you.
Yes,
what do you think about this entire...
This is something very mysterious, because the cell phone, the mobile phone, was created to speak, but we don't use it to speak. When I was a teenager, when somebody wanted to call you, this person called, and you were at home, and your mother said, Francesc, this is for you. And you take the telephone. Now nobody calls. They say, would I call you this afternoon at 4:30? And then you say, no, better 4:45. And normally they text you. So we have lost some spontaneity in the art of talking. And yes, and community means something different today. I would say that somebody who thinks that her community is the people who are following Instagram or something, this is a community of ghosts. You don't know who these people are, and people is showing only one part of themselves. So maybe, it happened to me many times, an Indian artist was insisting in making a live interview in Instagram, and he told me as something very important that he had 400,000 followers. And he was so insistent that in the end we did that. When we were talking, there were only 8 people attending to this conversation. So it was, I don't know, bots, ghosts, So I think for our internal balance, for our wellness, it's very important to come back to the traditional way of creating circles. Actually, one important chapter of Ikigai is the one dedicated to the moais. A moai is a circle of real people helping each other. So, for instance, if you are very interested in health and wellness, your moai would be a group of 7, 8, 10 people who write about this, who maybe have health centers, who are investigating, who are teaching about that. And this is a moai. A moai is a circle of solidarity that we inspire each other, we take care of each other. Actually, all the investigations done about human happiness, there was a very important study of Harvard during 80 years. They had like 10,000 volunteers, and they were exploring motivations and the different factors for happiness. And after 80 years of studying all these volunteers, the investigations concluded that first factor for happiness is not money, is not health, is not success in your profession, it's human relationships. The happiest people of the world are the ones who have good relationships with their family, with their friends, with the people who work with them, collaborators, etc. So if you have a good circle of people around you and you are like the musketeers, no? You are working for them and they are helping you, you will be much happier and much healthier psychologically than if you do many other things. Thank you.
Do you ever feel anxious, and what is your coping mechanism?
Okay, again, please.
Do you ever feel anxious?
Yes.
And what is your coping mechanism? What are the rituals you follow? What does Francesc turn to?
I feel anxious always about time. Not because I am worried about time, but because what we were telling before, I assume too many compromises, and then sometimes I am in bed and I think, wow, I had to give that article to El País, that is a national newspaper, and I forgot totally. And then I get anxious of the things that I haven't done yet. And before, what I did was worrying. But I have a friend in Barcelona that he's a very famous doctor of sleep problems. And he said, Francesc, if you are anxious in bed and you are worried of something that you didn't do, get out of bed and do that thing. It would be much better. And I practice that, and then if I am worried because there are things that I should be doing, then at 4 o'clock, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, and in the moment that I start doing that, anxiety goes down. You feel better. So what is the lesson of that? That anxiety comes of our thoughts about reality. If you start doing more things, instead of thinking about doing the things, then you relax immediately and you have flow, and you solve your problems, basically. It's a matter of doing.
So I also have like a little method that I follow about anxiety. anxiety, and it's an Ayurvedic. My Ayurvedic doctor gave me this suggestion because I'm Pitta dominant. Pitta people are very ambitious and they're go-getters, which is exactly who I am. And I think a lot about what to do in the next day. So Ayurveda says that if you're Pitta dominant, then you should make a list. So everything is off your mind and onto the paper, which is why also I love journaling, because the thoughts are off my head and onto the paper. But that was just something I wanted to share, since we were talking about anxiety and how to get things off your head. So Ikigai is a huge success, right? When did you realize that this has really made it big, and how did you feel about it?
Actually, in life, there is a part of preparation and a part of chance. Both go together. So I had written many books before Ikigai. Some of them were successful, not so many languages, because Ikigai has 70 languages and was a big success, but we couldn't suspect that at all. When we wrote that book with Hector, we thought it would be a book for the Japan lovers. It would be a book for people who maybe have at home books about wabi-sabi, kaizen, I don't know, ikebana. A book for a specialist, for Japan freaks. And we discovered that the world was waiting for this book, and it happened very quickly. We published the book in Spain in a small publishing house. In 1 month, we had already like 10 translations. And then the book came to United States, and Oprah Winfrey put the book as Book of the Week in her blog, and it helped a lot. And then, so what happened with that? How to know what is going to be successful? It's impossible to know. And I tell you as a publisher why. I was publisher before than writer. And then if you start writing your first novel today, you will finish maybe in 1 year. And you will give to your agent or your publishers, and it will be published maybe in 2027. Who can know what the public is expecting in 2 years from now? We don't know what will happen with society. What will do Trump and Elon Musk? We don't know what will be fashionable then. So the only thing you can do for success is what Toni Morrison said. If there is a book that you would love to read and this book doesn't exist, you will have to write it. And I think this is the idea. Write or do this thing that you would love to have for yourself, and you give it to the universe, and you will discover if it was for 100 people or for 1 million. Life will tell you. Thank you.
We just have less than a couple of minutes, and I have to ask you this. How do the Japanese feel about you writing a book like Ikigai?
Actually, that's a good question, because the word Ikigai existed in Japan, but it was not used in the daily life. Nobody was asking in Japan, what is your Ikigai? No, it was a word that was used maybe in philosophical essays, in some very specific situations. The book Ikigai was also translated in Japan, and it was the only language in the world where the word Ikigai was not in the title. They put a very long title like The Story of Two Spanish Journalists Who Stalked with the Centenarians, something like that. So in Japan it was not very successful, but when we are there, because we are telling nice things about them, I think they feel honored, and for them it's interesting to see the point of view of somebody from outside, how these two journalists can understand their culture and this particular concept. Actually, Hector lives there since 20 years. I live outside. And for them, it's curious that a book about Ikigai was not written by a Japanese, but by two people with a very different culture. But it can happen the same with India. After Ikigai, we received many petitions of Indian readers to say, why don't you do something like that? And we wrote that. And that book was called in all the world Namaste, but the American publisher said, we don't know this title because it's a too common word. And they put in India the four Purusharthas. But it's the same. It's the point of view of somebody who has been 10 times in India and who loves India and has read the Indian authors, but is not living here. So it's a different perspective. And I think it's interesting. And actually in Spain, the best historians about the Civil War are not Spanish. It's one British and one American, and they are the most respected essayists about that.
Thank you, Francesc. That was really enlightening and very interesting. I'm sure the audience has questions, so
Thank you very much.
Let's take it over, take some questions.
If we can move to some audience questions now, please. So much on anxiety, Ikigai, so much to take away home today. Yes? Yes, sir, please go on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really...
What do you mean by Ikigai?
Just a minute, just a minute.
What do you mean by...
Just a minute, sir. He's already started asking his question.
These 4 circles, and the impression you get from the book is that these 4 circles are of equal importance. But I feel, especially for younger people, that first circle, that is the joy that you get out of it, probably we should stress less on that. Because in my own case, I'm a physician, and if as a young man I had paid that much importance to whether joy was the main thing in my life, I may not have become a physician. I gave more stress to the fact that I should be useful, I should help others, I should be financially successful. I gave more importance to the other circles. But now, later in my life, I feel I can do my true Ikigai. I want to do whatever gives me the most joy because the other circles are less important. I'd love to hear your insights on that.
Thank you very much. Yes, the 4 circles can be used in different ways through life. Of course, children are conscious about what they love to do, too much sometimes. And I think for the youngest people, the second circle is very important because it's the circle of the talent. When I was very young, I thought I was good for nothing. I didn't have an idea of my abilities, what could I contribute to life. So I think the second circle is important to work with that when you are a child, when you are a teenager, and to get feedback from other people, from the parents, from the teachers, from friends. What I am good at, can you tell me that? Because maybe you discover then that you are good to listening to people, and maybe there is a possible therapist inside yourself. So the first 2 circles, the first is very intuitive. You feel that you love doing that and you have flow. The second is more difficult because normally people is too humble and we recognize the good things in others but not in ourselves, and we must learn to do that. The circle of money is something imposed by society, but I think in the end of life, in the second part of life, the 4th circle is very important, more than any other, because when you understand what the world needs, you start thinking of your legacy to the world. What will you give there? So maybe children are very fond on what they love. Maybe parents and teachers should be focused on what they are good at. Society will put the money there. But if we want to transcend, and if we want to fulfill, to feel that we are doing something important in the second half of life, what the world needs should be our compass. That was very interesting. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, just a minute. The gentleman there is the second in line. Thereafter, we will move to a little girl here who wants to ask the question. Yes, sir. Can you please ask your question? It's okay. If you can please loudly ask your question. What do you mean by Ikigai, the word?
Me. Actually, what I mean by Ikigai, actually what happens with this kind of words, and in the Indian languages there are also untranslatable words, is that they have many interpretations. Actually, the first time Hector and me were in contact with the concept of Ikigai, we thought, how can we translate that? How can we explain it? And the first translation was not purpose in life or reason to live. It was the happiness of being well busy, or the importance of being happily busy. That's for me the meaning of Ikigai. For me, Ikigai is getting up one day and saying, I feel that this day will be great because I will do this thing that is important for me and is important for the world. For me, that's the definition of it. Ikigai is what you do that has value for yourself and has value for the world. Explaining it in a very simple way. Thank you. There was a very young person.
Yes, we have a little girl here. Yes.
How can I find my Ikigai?
Good. That's good. It's good that being so young, you can have this question. There are different ways. One way we already explained. If you know what you love to do and you are good at that, maybe this is your Ikigai. But there are people who don't know that. There are people who don't know what they love, who don't know what they are good at, and then you can do the opposite process. What is that I don't like at all? For instance, when I was working, before being a freelance, I worked in many different offices as a publisher, different jobs. And I discovered that where there was an office, there was unhappiness for me. I don't like to go to the office and to sit on a desk and to be in front of the computer. And then, if what I hate is being in this kind of job, then I must think of the opposite. What is the opposite of going to the office? Being free, working with your laptop in India, here, there. So I became a freelancer. So we have already three ways. What you love, your talent, and what you don't love. And then also, you are a child, but if this question was made by somebody who is 40, I would say, remember who you were when you were a child. Because children are naturally near to their Ikigai. Normally you see a child, and this child is singing, is practicing sports, is telling stories. The children are natural, and they explore what they love to do, and they do it. But maybe you are 40, and your childhood is very far away, and then a fourth way to find your Ikigai is remember who you were, what did you want to do with your life, what did you love to do, and maybe recover that. And the fifth way would be the way the science works. So the science progresses with trial and mistake. So you try one thing, and then you discover if this is for you or not. You, for instance, try to open your own business in a platform, and then you feel that you are not happy there, you do something else. You go to a school and you give a talk to the children, and maybe you feel happy there and you feel that there is connection. Maybe you found your Ikigai. So, to summarize this, to put it short, I would say if you don't have an Ikigai, get out of the couch, get out of the sofa, and go to the world to explore, because the more people you know, the more experiences you have, the more different influences, there is a higher opportunity that you discover this that lights an Ikigai into your heart. Thank you very much for the question.
We have
A very
time
short
for
question with a difficult answer.
one last question.
Yeah.
A short question, please. You have
Yeah.
just 1 minute.
Yeah, hello, this is Vikas here. I read your book in Ikigai where there were
Thank
discussions regarding we should eat 80% of our hunger. So given the context of like present scenario, people they are obsessed with like late eating habits and they eat more than what they are hungry of. So what is the impact of eating habits to the health and happiness as per the Ikigai quote?
The impact of Ikigai in health and happiness. Yes, I think the impact is very strong. If you spend your life doing something that you don't like, you feel frustrated. You feel that you are not living your own life, that you are living somebody else's life. So it's very important that you do something, even that you work in something that if you were rich, you would do it the same thing without getting money. This is for me the definition of Ikigai. Finding something that fulfills you so much that it's independent from money. And it has a lot to do with health, because when you are not doing what your heart is demanding, you feel that you are losing your time, and you are sad, and you are not in the best position to give all your talents out. It happened to me when I was a publisher. I was happy in the beginning working as a publisher, but there was a very bad human atmosphere in that office. There was a lot of mobbing, there was a lot of mistreat between the older employees and the new ones. And I was totally unhappy there. And so something that was my Ikigai, that was publishing books, I lost my Ikigai totally, and I started hating that job. And then many things happened that are like signals that a depression could come. I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was anxious. I was sad because I was going there. And then what happened was that I had to take a decision. I thought, if I go on every day going here where I am unhappy, I will get depressed, I will have to take pills, and I will be asleep. I won't have the life I want to have. And then I decided quitting the job, and what I did then is I traveled to India for the first time. It was 1999, and being 2 months in this beautiful country, and I was in Madras by that time, it was the first time in my life where I decided that I would write. And actually my first book, I wrote it in India in a notebook. And so I think that if you feel that you are not living in your Ikigai, it deserves the effort to trying to do that. If in the end it doesn't work, you can go always to a similar job, but at least to have the feeling that you tried to do something different that was important for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.